All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us for day 2 of our L&D Recharge event here at the Training, Learning, and Development community. Thanks again for joining us. Let's see, I'm taking a look. Who is in the audience? Oh, we got Antoinette. Yes, and Claire is back. Nice to see you again, Dan Smith. And let's see, Alicia. Angela's here again today. Great. Yeah, go ahead and type in chat if you are able to hear me. Oh, hi, Marisol. Nice to see you again. Throw some emojis so we make sure that this interface is working. It's great to see all of you. So day 2, I'm so glad that we're able to open this second day with kind of someone who is relatively, or who is new to kind of TLDC, Ryan Austin from Cognota. Ryan wrote this article that is the same title as this session, Navigating the Evolving Landscape of the L&D Job Market, Insights and Trends for 2024. And the way that we kind of found Ryan was Abby and I were sort of chatting back and forth about things that we've been reading out there on the web. And there was a training journal article that Ryan had written and had a couple or 3 guests on it. I know it was Debbie Richards, JD Dillon, and I can't remember who the other one was. I didn't know, but they had written in or sent in some of what they had seen as trends for the L&D job market. And so we reached out to Ryan to see if he would participate in this event, and he happily agreed. So we have him here today. A little bit about Ryan. He's a serial entrepreneur with over 15 years in L&D. Currently, he's the CEO at Cognota. He develops innovative technology to enhance corporate learning productivity, earning multiple Brandon Hall Awards. And he's also a mentor at Elevate and a regular contributor to various industry publications. You'll probably see that in the QA area of the interface, lots of questions that I'd posted there for Ryan that are specifically related to the article. So you'll see those in there. If there are any in particular that you want to vote up or comment on, go ahead and type that in there. Otherwise, Ryan, I'm going to let you take it away. You've got a nice slide deck that we're seeing right now, and I'll let you take over.
Yeah, thank you so much, Louis. So excited to be here. I'm Ryan Austin. I'm the founder, CEO of a company called Cognota. We do a lot of community building and ecosystem building as well in L&D, and I'm so happy to learn about this and overwhelmed to be a part of it. Thank you very much for taking the time today to learn about our article and some of the research we'll be sharing from the article and other research that we've conducted that's relevant to today's topic. Really exciting agenda and objectives based off of the questions that were presented. So today we're going to talk about some of the 2024 L&D job market changes since the pandemic. We're going to look at strategies for transitioning to flexible professional development, talk about some of the hiring practices that we're seeing in L&D, new skills that are needed in L&D, and also methods to upskill and stay relevant in L&D. So all very timely and ready for the questions as well. And Louis, did you want to go through the questions together? Is that how you prefer to do this? Okay, so I have the list here, so I'll go through some of these things. And one of the questions that was asked was what inspired us to write this article. And if you're not familiar with the article, we wrote an article with Training Journal. One of their publicists reached out to us and asked if we can put together a group of experts to talk about some of the job trends that we're seeing in 2023 and into 2024, which we're now into. And so, as Louis mentioned, I wrote this alongside Debbie Richards, who's a top 10 e-learning expert in the world. She's been voted by many, has received many nominations in that regard. Awesome person to connect with on LinkedIn. You probably see her at a lot of conferences if you attend any. She's the person who usually has purple or blue hair, and now she told me that she has purple hair with blue highlights. So she sent us a new picture recently, which is a lot of fun. Also, JD Dillon, who's a chief learning officer at Exonify, and also has written books that you're probably familiar with. Keith Keating, who is the new chief learning officer at BDO in Toronto, and he and I share a lot of common thought processes around how L&D can be positioned to be strategic drivers for the business, which is very relevant to today with all of the focus around impact and measurement and ROI. And so the four of us really got together to write an article, which I'd encourage you to read on Training Journal, that talks about a lot of the insights that we're going to go over today as well.
Hey, Ryan, sorry to interrupt. I just want to let you know when I didn't have my mic and my video on when you had asked that original question. I went into the QA area, and actually I'm pasting them in now. I think when we started, for some reason, they all disappeared, all the questions.
Okay.
But if you wanted to go through them, totally would be happy to do that if they align with your slides and everything. So yeah, just let me know. Right now I'm just here pasting the rest of them in. So everyone can take a look and see those questions now.
Yeah, and feel free to ask questions along the way too. We can elaborate on some of the concepts, etc. But one of the questions that was asked was, can you elaborate on the main trends that were identified in the L&D market for 2024? And some of the main trends that we elaborate from the article is that we talked about how, and keep in mind this was written at the end of 2023, but how corporate spending is likely to remain limited in 2024. We actually have seen that in the first half of the year, but we're seeing some budget open up for technology, especially when there's the ability to consolidate technology tools. So with other vendors we talk to and partner with, we actually are hearing the same from them. Q1 was really slow, but as we went into Q2 and now starting to think about Q3, we're starting to see more budget free up from L&D teams, which is quite interesting, actually. But we also talk about how the L&D landscape is undergoing a significant transformation with new skills and competencies emerging as pivotal for the future success of L&D, and how it can be a challenge to know which L&D professionals you need to succeed in 2024, what skills are needed. And we talked about how in 2024, we're really going to see a transformation, adaptation, it really significantly influenced by the economic conditions and technological advancements we're seeing with AI and otherwise. And the need for new skill development, which we'll get into later as well, enabling L&D to become better decision makers, better business leaders. I was just part of a research group with Red Thread Research, and this concept of L&D people and leaders needing to have better business acumen is critical, right? And understanding where to make trade-offs, how sometimes you might have invested a lot of hours into a program, and if it's not working, being okay to pivot and drop it, right? So these are all really important things to think about in an economy that's a little bit tighter right now. And Brandon Carson, who's a friend of mine, he leads global learning and development at Starbucks. In his book, The L&D Playbook for Digital Age, he talks about this concept of the 3 R's, and how L&D needs to reset and adopt to new rules for almost every aspect of implementing learning solutions, rethinking the roles of L&D, and assemble plans for increased digital learning, whether it's facilitation, coaching, mentoring, designing content, etc. And this need to just rebuild L&D's operating principles with new responsibilities that reflect the ongoing needs of the business. And we also talked about one of the other questions I was asked, how has the pandemic reshaped the L&D job market according to findings? And today's workplace looks extremely different than what it did before COVID-19. And I think COVID was actually a blessing for L&D. During COVID, companies really looked at L&D to become the superheroes with this overnight shift to remote working and having to teach people how to do that. Companies turned to the talent and L&D teams to help with that. And it was a time where there was a lot of urgency and mission critical for businesses to learn these skills of remote work. And L&D stepped up to the plate and showed businesses how to do this. So now companies are looking at, like, if L&D was able to do that for us during that time, what else can they do for us with strategic initiatives? And then when you look at today's economic uncertainty, you're seeing high inflation, and this is not just in any particular industry. All industries are struggling with, this economic global roller coaster ride. And then you see a lot of quiet quitting still, which often makes it hard to meet KPIs and achieve business goals. And then capacity gaps or resource restraints, where resources sometimes feel like they're impossible in this time, with budgets being slashed, and there's some options. So we're going to talk about a lot of that as well today too. But
Hey, Ryan,
the pandemic.
can
Yeah.
I interrupt you? I
Ahead.
got a question for you because I'm just
Please.
curious. Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying that budgets opened up a little, or you're seeing some budgets opening up for L&D in 2024. Do you have any idea, like, why exactly? Or, it sounds like
Yeah.
maybe during the pandemic things were sort of maybe deflated, and now things are starting to get back to some kind of normal. Or is that the case?
So in 2022, 2023, when markets were at an all-time high, like spending wallets just opened up, and I think people over invested into teams, in the size of their teams, into technology. A lot of technology was being bought. That's why stock markets were at an all-time high for a lot of SaaS companies, etc. And then as things started to reset, that's when we started seeing a lot of layoffs. Businesses needed to work more efficiently, and with inflation, you had to kind of work smarter. So you saw a lot of budgets really crunching, tightening up, no spend almost. And now I think companies are starting to adjust a little bit into this new way of working, where they've gotten rid of the tools that they felt are nice to have versus need to have. And they're looking at making investments into efficiency gains so that they can keep headcount rather small and do more with less. And so we're seeing spend into areas like AI or operational efficiencies, where it's not necessarily that vitamin, it's a painkiller to help the teams do more with less. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, great answer. That's good to know. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And basically with the pandemic, it catalyzed a shift into work environments, learning modalities. As we all know, there was challenges to in-person training models. We're seeing that come back, actually. Well, people, a lot of companies want people back at the office. So we're seeing them use in-person training, saying like, hey, we need you to come get certified, or we want you to come back to the university campus or whatnot to take this training. So we're seeing more in-person training come back, which is interesting, but still flexible models. We also seeing that challenges are persisting. So scarcity of resources is still a problem, meeting the expanding needs of workforce development, and the time for learning is shrinking, like because of the smaller workforce in some areas where people are expected to do more with less. There's not enough time to do skill building. Like companies are demanding skill building, but there's almost not enough time. So a lot of employees have to do it on their own time, which is interesting. And in response to a lot of these evolving dynamics, L&D professionals are prioritizing especially leaders, CLOs, chief talent development officers, new skills. There's a lot of discussion around empathy, trust building, effective communication, conflict navigation, and adaptability. But then other skills that we'll talk about around digital literacy or how to elevate the L&D team. So really is gazing into the future. It's clear to us that the L&D job market will continue to be reshaped by these trends and a growing need for strategic, agile skill sets in L&D to capitalize on these ongoing challenges.
All right. So Ryan, just real quick, I don't think this was on your list, but I want to ask this question to you. I think this is great that you're here because you work with CLOs. You're kind of more like you focus, your audience is primarily people that are higher level instructional designers. A lot of the audience of this particular event may be closer to entry level, or like say teachers that are transitioning into instructional design or learning and development. Do you have any specific like advice for those folks that are just kind of entering into this job market, and maybe just from your really high level that you have, sort of what would you say to some of those folks?
Yeah, so I love that this audience is in some cases entry level or instructional designers. It's really important for you to understand at a high level what the CLOs or what more senior professionals in L&D or talent development are talking about, so that you can think about your career paths as you go from instructional designers to other areas, and what new skills are going to be important in that regard as well. Also, if you want to, Cognota offers free workshops. They're 4-hour workshops with chief learning officers. So if you want to learn about these concepts and network with peers, even if you're entry level, it's very valuable opportunity. And I'll put a link to where you can register. You can actually get continuing education units for attending as well. But that might be a good way to dive deeper into these concepts at no cost and to get some certifications to help you think through what your opportunities might be. And we'll talk about skills that we're hearing about as well. One of the questions that was asked was, what are the skills L&D professionals need to develop to stay relevant in 2024? And what we're seeing is major shifts in this job market right now. Emerging technologies are obviously playing a pivotal role. So in the workshops that I just talked about, we actually do some research, and you can see here some word clouds from the actual attendees. So concepts like aligning strategy and goals to learning are a big focus area. Being more vision and outcomes driven, looking at planning processes, project management, roadmaps, blueprints, again, being top conversations around planning learning. On the delivery side, leaders are expecting execution, like moving as fast as the business right now is really important, and expecting L&D professionals to be entrepreneurial. This is not a market where people want to hear why they don't have resources or why they can't move fast, to executives that might feel like excuses. And I know, guys, it's really hard to work with very limited resources, which everybody's feeling constrained. So being entrepreneurial, thinking outside the box to make that possible. And then a lot of focus on measurement and optimizing, and this comes back to that comment I made on business acumen, for example. Just being better communicators, being able to help influence and make decisions, even if you're an instructional designer, instead of sitting on the sidelines and in your work, going to your manager, team lead, or whatnot, and making recommendations when you see improvements, and having open discussions on how we can do better, how we can move faster, and things like that. So Keith Keaton, who's the CLO at BDO, he was one of the collaborators in this. He talked about how how we're at a crossroads where technology, especially AI, is reshaping the corporate landscape. And he argues that L&D needs to transition from being order takers to strategic partners who are integral in driving business results and adapting to these technological advancements. So, instead of being instructional designer that's just focused on content creation, maybe it's about human experiences, designing experiences for learning and development, not just thinking about the content aspect, but the problem solving aspect and on the experience side. And then JD Dillon, who is another contributor, he mentioned in the article, which this presentation is about, that we must rethink the role of L&D plays in this new version of work. We need to be able to scale and flex our learning and support offerings to meet the changing needs of our workforce. And this requires that shift from being program-based L&D to systems-based L&D. And so as we look at 2024 and the years that follow, the L&D job market is really poised for some groundbreaking shifts, AI and automation becoming central to L&D infrastructure. So really learning about the different technologies in AI that instructional designers can use to help work quickly. And then, and they talk about, my colleagues and I talk about that this technological integration, how it's going to reshape L&D roles, requiring a blend of tech savviness and knowledge, and then highlighting the importance of agility and continuous learning for L&D professionals in this evolving landscape. One of the other questions was, can you discuss the impact of economic conditions on the L&D job market? And this is what I'm really excited about. So although there's this fundamental paradigm shift happening where L&D needs to pivot how they operate, really excited about what's happening. So I know this year, tighter budgets, inflation, it's really hard. There's not enough resources to do all the work. But if you look at the higher level market trends that are happening, it's really exciting, where it really positions L&D to be these strategic pillars in organizations now. So moving away from order taker more into this trusted learning advisory role, which is really excited. And that's what's pushing the need for these new skills. So if you look at the overall market size for L&D over the next 10 years, it's going from $330 billion to $490 billion, like the overall corporate L&D market. So there's huge growth happening in this market right now. But then there's all this change because of tighter markets, you need to work more efficiently, etc. So that's where the pressure of tighter resources is coming from, is new ways of working, this great reset with businesses. And when you have high growth and a lot of change, what does that mean? It means that you need new skills. And so this is where L&D is perfectly positioned to become these strategic trusted advisors to basically tell the business, how are we going to de-risk your execution plans and show the business new plans for these skills to increase probability of their success. I'm seeing a couple questions in the chat. Any recommendations for people with disabilities seeking remote work? Marisol, we're going to talk about remote work and just the job market right now. I know the supply and demand is very difficult. Long story short, if you're looking to find a job quickly, we recommend looking locally in your city, because a lot of people want people back at the office. And so finding remote work, which I know everybody loves, at Cognota, we're a remote working company as well. But companies do want to see that in-person collaboration. So we're seeing people get jobs faster when they're okay with a hybrid element and looking more locally. Not all the time, but it's a trend we're seeing right now. Are there specific LinkedIn courses or other training that you recommend to improve business acumen for L&D professionals? There is, you want to look up learning strategy as a course. And again, the free workshop we offer, Jackie, is a good way to learn about a lot of this as well. So JD Dillon, when we talked about the economic conditions in the article, JD Dillon talked about economic shifts directly impacting L&D. And unfortunately, this is resulting in a lot of layoffs, cost cutting as business deal with inflationary pressures and ongoing recession fears. But there will be a rebound. Like companies working smarter won't go away. There's going to be focus on efficiency, but because of the growth of the market, there will be a need to hire more people. And then when you dig into that size of the market, here's some interesting facts. $130 billion is spent on L&D programs, but only 25% of that is judged to be spent effectively. So that is why there's this huge emphasis on ROI and impact right now, because with tighter markets, with inflation, with companies being more cost conscious, they just expect ROI now, right? And it's really hard for L&D to make this shift. I mean, if this $130 billion was your own personal money, you would want to know if you're getting an ROI on the spend as well, right? So it's an important ask for L&D, and one of the skill areas that L&D can brush up on. And I think a huge opportunity for L&D skill sets is to get ROI certified. We're partners with the ROI Institute. You can go through a certification program with them. It will really make you stand out. I can't tell you, in the research we do in our workshops, ROI, measuring impact, is the number one problem for L&D people right now, and learning how to do that. So it's a great one of the skills that will really position you outside a lot of people if you learn how to do that, if you show that you have some certification in that area, etc. Another question that was asked from us was, what strategies do you recommend for L&D professionals to manage the scarcity of resources for workforce development? And, I really narrow it down to 4 things that we'll go over. Being an entrepreneur, right? So the definition of entrepreneurship to me, being an entrepreneur is making resources available where they seem impossible. I can't tell you enough, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to hear stories, or you can Google some of them. I've done some podcasts or whatnot, but there have been times, especially in the startup phase of Cognota, where there were no resources, but we had to figure out, how do we get to that next inflection point and be scrappy and entrepreneurial to figure it out and just be persistent until it happened. So this concept of entrepreneurial is making resources available where they might seem impossible, getting creative, thinking outside the box on where you can make resources available. A good way to do that is auditing processes. And even if you're not in an L&D manager role or a director role, even if you're an instructional designer, you can audit your current process. Like, are there areas for you to have efficiency gains without the need to hire more resources, right? And so in this economy, L&D teams need speed and scale, but the reality is that their operations are disparate a lot of the times. We see on average 85% of L&D teams using 3 to 8 generic IT tools to manage learning operations, and they all want to consolidate. So, just using the ADDIE model as an example, and this is a great exercise to not only go through for just operational efficiencies gains, but also where AI can be implemented to help you automate and work faster as well. So again, if you're only responsible for parts of the process, like design in here, you can still audit and just take a step back and review what you're doing in general in your practice, in your area of the business, and see where there's fires, meaning, where are you really being blocked, right? Where are these inefficiencies, and how do you overcome them? What can we do to work smarter, not harder, make resources available where they seem impossible, or in some cases, use AI to work faster as well? And so now, if you're a manager or a team lead or a director, you could do this exercise across all the pillars of ADDIE or SAM or Llama or any framework in general. But and then it comes down to priorities. You might not be able to work on everything or optimize everything at once. So start with the lowest hanging fruits, the biggest bottlenecks, start there. And if you invest a few hours a week in just thinking about this, think about where you'll be in a year from now, right? You'll be way ahead of the game in that regard. And then capacity tracking. People mix up capacity tracking, especially instructional designers. They don't like it. And when managers or team leads or directors ask their L&D team to start managing capacity or whatnot, this is much different than time tracking, okay? You're not punching in a clock and punching out a clock unless you're a highly regulated industry and you need to do that for compliance reasons. Capacity tracking is a skill set. It's the same skill that software developers, which develop software, instructional designers develop content and experiences. So there's a lot of similarity between these different functional areas, except software development is much more mature than L&D as a business function. But looking at those more mature business functions to see what they're doing and how they're keeping up with business needs is a great exercise. And the need to do capacity tracking in this economy is important because it helps L&D teams as a whole to forecast resources so that they can make decisions on reprioritization as new requests from the business comes in. And the need to pivot lower priority areas is important to demonstrate impact. And there's a lot of pressure on L&D leaders to demonstrate impact and ROI right now. So if they ask you, hey, we're going to stop this project and start working on this, that might be frustrating, but there's probably a reason for it on just, a higher priority area came up and we need to stay ahead of this. And if you're an instructional designer and you embrace capacity planning and learn the skill of forecasting and actualizing, meaning forecasting how much time do I think this task or in this project will take, and putting that time commitment down. And then as you're actually doing the work, you're learning more about how much time it will actually take and actualizing it along the way. If you learn that and build it up like a muscle, you're going to be one step ahead of other instructional designers who might be pushing back on these concepts, because it now enables the L&D team to get more accurate and predictable around how much capacity do we have as a team to work on priorities, to work on programs as they come in from business partners, and to push back when there might not be capacity, or to get creative on making capacity available where they seem impossible. And then staff augmentation as well is a big focus area with companies who don't have all the resources. They don't want to say no because, again, in this market, it's all about building value creation and driving impact. So a good way to look at this is these quick flex staffing models, that if your team doesn't have capacity, which partners can you lean in with to augment your projects with outsourcing for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and so on, just to keep up and to do more with less, right? And in this economy, if you don't have a job, you might want to look at some platforms like LearnNexus, who help L&D people find outsourcing jobs as a way to make income. They're like kind of like, if you're familiar with Upwork as a platform, they're like that, but just for L&D. And then, I know companies like InfoPro Learning and SweetRush are always looking at growing their augmented staffing networks as well. And if you focus on the operational improvements, then you can make resources available where they seem impossible. So at ChenMed, we helped them move from disparate IT systems to Cognota. And what that allowed them to do was save 6,000 hours in their L&D team, which was equivalent to having 3 full-time employees without actually having to add those people to their teams. And so another question that came in was, how important is digital proficiency for L&D professionals in today's job market. And that was a focus area as well in the article. And in the article, we mentioned the increasing demand for roles that are not just digital literate, but can innovate with digital tools. And this is where the concept of learning operations becomes critical. There's no different from learning operations to things like DevOps, like, in software development, you have DevOps, or in revenue functions, you have RevOps. In L&D, where all this money is being spent, where there's this high program spend, where there's efficiency gains, this need for learning operations is becoming more critical. We're seeing a lot more job roles with the job title learning operations now too. And that's a cool new area that you can grow your career in, as well as other areas like learning strategy, data science, AI, strategic consulting, which we'll get into. But basically, when L&D professionals start embracing these trends, that's when they can effectively leverage them for creating impactful and accessible learning solutions, right? So again, with the economic downturn, it's led to these reduced job openings and this need for a shift in work dynamics. But while there's a growing importance for digital tools and strategies in L&D roles, like, that's undeniable right now. So the need for internal talent development, the integration of operational excellence into learning processes, auditing your processes for efficiency, that's more critical than ever right now, right? It's more crucial than ever. So as L&D professionals, we want to embrace the change with this navigating landscape, and again, stay agile and be informed on these trends that are thriving in our industry.
Hey, Ryan, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
please.
And just for these folks, in this particular event. So if you were somebody that wanted to learn more about being having learn ops skills, like, what would that require? Would you like can you give me a quick description? If somebody wanted to apply for a learn ops job, what are you looking at here? Like, what would you need to know?
Yeah, so you need to be good with analysis, like really understand, like being the person who can look at the learning operations holistically from a high level, and leading the charge of these audits where there could be efficiency gains, and understanding the technology stack ecosystem so that you can make recommendations on which technologies can help make the department more efficient. And then look at how do you make basically people, best practices and processes and technology work seamlessly together. So you do want to take some data and analytics courses, or brush up on those skills, so that you're the one who can look at the data analytics and come and make recommendations to your L&D managers or whatnot. And I would say a great place to look at is like product operation courses. There's not a big difference between how product managers and product teams that support L&D. There's a lot of synergy and overlap from product operations to learning operations. Product managers and product operations, they're the ones who help the software developers work more agile, stay on top of the right priorities, etc. And in learning operations, it's the same thing. They're the ones who help ensure that the priorities with business partners are the right priorities, and that the teams are working as efficiently and as effectively as possible. Naturally, we have software that helps you to do that, and we offer a lot of either paid or free certification programs in that regard. Like, one of the things we just announced at the ATD is the launch of the first accredited learning operations certification program that goes live in fall of 2024. So you can join a wait list if you're interested in that. But it's really exciting. We partnered with 32 chief learning officers and thought leaders to put this together. Since we're kind of helping to lead the ecosystem development of learning operations. But again, doesn't have to be just this, and this is not meant to be a plug. It is the first program because there is a need. But again, if not us, then I would encourage you to look at product management as a complementary business function on where you can learn skills that you can apply to learning and development.
No, totally. It's fascinating because I've been, on a DevOps team. I'm on a MarkOps team. So seeing LearnOps sort of pop up, I think that's a great idea. Hey, can I throw a question at you that just came in from Jackie? Let me pop this up on the stage. Would you say that staff augmentation is a norm that contributes to the lack of full-time roles available?
No, it's complementary. Like, again, going back to software development and product teams, and Cognota is a software company, right? So I'll use us as an example. If we have a roadmap and our team just can't get what we need done in time versus like the customer pressures or whatnot, we'll have trusted partners that we bring into some projects and whatnot. And it's about when do you use those? So we don't use it, for example, for core product features because we want to build that acumen on our team with our own engineers. But if for some reason, and we have really a really strong track record with our SLAs, or service level agreements with customers. So don't take this in the wrong context. But if we saw some bugs in a certain area of the platform, but there was pressure, for example, on getting a feature that customers really needed out, then we'll bring in some QA engineers that are outsourced from a trusted partner to just help make resources available versus not delivering for our customers, right? So you have to get creative. So that's an example on where we see staff augmentation. It's to make resources available where they seem impossible, or to help fill skill gaps for like facilitation management or whatnot. If you don't have facilitators that can teach a topic and there's a pressing issue, then there's a lot of firms out there that have subject matter experts who can teach that, and you can bring them in, right? So those are a couple examples.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And so, again, how can L&D professionals leverage new technology and tools? You want to stay close to things like analyst reports, ATD. Keep reading ATD if you remember there. Sign up to analyst reports like Red Thread Research or follow like Josh Burson. You want to follow leading vendors in the space. So if you're interested in staying ahead on learning operations, Cognota. For AI, there's other technologies for authoring, Articulate. And a lot of these vendors offer advanced free workshops. So it's a good way to stay in tune with the technology advancements that are happening there, right? So what I'm saying really is get your hands dirty. Get your hands dirty to build new skills around technologies and differentiate yourself in the workplace as well. I'll work. Elena says, can we get a list of the resources people have mentioned? I'll work with the team here after the session with Luis and whatnot to compile all of this. So can you explain the concept of LearnOps lifecycle? You asked me about the importance of this. So this framework is something that's an evolution. We continue to add to it, but there's basically 5 stages: align, plan, deliver, measure, optimize. And basically, in a nutshell, it's how do you have strategic alignment, focusing on setting the L&D strategies that support and support the corporate, increasing probability of success to getting to corporate goals. How do you efficiently allocate resources and create impactful learning programs? How do you oversee smooth delivery of L&D projects with a keen eye on operational excellence? How do you measure the impact of L&D efforts and use data to drive decision making? And how do you optimize L&D operations based on measurable outcomes and insights, right? So just incorporating the LearnOps principles into your skill set. This is what's going to help you prepare for demands of 2024, but also position you as strategic partners within the organization and moving you into that next role from instructional designer into other areas that might be coming highly relevant, like learning strategy or learning operations or data and analytics, or ROI. evaluation in the marketplace. Like, these are skills that L&D teams are lacking. And if you learn these skills and you're looking for new jobs, and these are the types of skills that will differentiate you in the workplace, and also allow you to move into new salary brackets, because these are strategic roles. So they're looked at as critical roles that L&D teams need right now.
Great. Hey, can I throw this big question to you from Araba?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some strategies to manage both speed and quality,
Okay.
which ultimately drives behavioral ROI? It takes time to do proper needs and analysis and assessments, etc. And a rush training will likely not have a desired impact. It's a good one. I mean, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. So we're going to get into a couple slides on that. So I'm not pushing it off. But ultimately, a quick response is that you don't need to do ROI for every project. Like, you want to look at, sometimes there's no need. And you also want to understand what level of impact or evaluation do you want to do for particular programs. Like, ROI at the end of the day is just the math. Evaluation is one thing. ROI is another thing. Impact is a separate thing. Sometimes people mix these concepts up. ROI is just the math. For the time and money we spent on this program and with the results, did we get a positive math result or a negative math result? And then you use that to make decisions on how do you continue to invest, iterate into these programs, or stop the program. I was on a webinar with one of the ROI people who works at Verizon, and they had a negative ROI in one of their multi-million-dollar programs. And instead of running away or hiding that, they approached stakeholders in the business and said, we should stop investing in this because it's not giving us the impact we want. And they were patted on the back for that because it saved the company thousands of hours and a lot of money moving forward, where they were able to reallocate that time and money into other more impactful programs. And so one of the questions that came in are, what are the most significant changes in L&D roles due to the rise of AI? And so I have this little cartoon, like, have you figured out how AI will impact our business? Working on it. Like, realistically, a lot of people are trying to figure out which AI elements they can even incorporate. Everybody's talking about it. We see info security teams blocking AI a lot of the times, sort of like back in the day when companies were hesitant to go from on-prem hosting to in the cloud hosting. Now everybody's in the cloud. So it's just a matter of time. So, but learning about skills and AI and learning the technologies, and, there will be a tilting point when companies do at scale adopt these technologies. They are doing it still now, just it's harder to get through the door and sometimes. But again, looking at operational efficiencies, automation, what technology will help your team go faster, being an instructional designer and making that recommendation to the team will set you apart, rather than being scared of these new technologies, thinking they're going to replace you. You can be that strategic, trusted advisor, making recommendations on how to strengthen things, how to save time and money for your team, or for even yourself, to add more value to the bottom line of your businesses. So JD Dillon did say in there that corporate spending is likely to remain limited in 2024, citing factors like increased costs and instability, and automation and the impact of technology will have an impact on job roles across the board. He talks about this will further reduce the need for training resources, plus same efficiencies will start to be gained in L&D as AI shifts from experimentation to value add capabilities. So again, predicting a significant change in L&D roles, especially in content development and administration. I agree, like, gone are the traditional ways of doing things as an instructional designer. So you got to learn these new ways of doing things. And no, we're getting limited on time. So jumping into some of the ROI comments, how can organizations nurture or what advice? Let me just jump to a couple questions. Okay, how can L&D professionals transition from being order takers to strategic business partners? So Keith Keaton, again, my colleague who wrote this article with me, he emphasizes, and he has a book called The Trusted Learning Advisor. It's great. I would encourage you to read that. But he talks about the emphasis of urgency of the L&D skills evolutions, stating the transformation from order takers to trusted learning advisors is not just pivotal, it's imperative for the future of talent and development. And he talks about how HR and L&D professionals are set to play a critical role in today's technology-driven business landscape. And, where this order-taking mindset comes from is from the Industrial Revolution. And now with technology advancements, the role of HR and L&D professionals has never been more critical, right? Again, we saw this L&D become the superheroes during COVID, and it's now where can we leverage them in other strategic areas of the business. So Keith stresses the need in the article. He stresses the need for learning professionals to move beyond passive roles and actively shape organizational strategy. So I always say that if L&D wants a seat at the table, they need to be the ones who are going out of their way to understand what's even being discussed at the table. What is the corporate's 1 year, 3 year priorities or objectives? What's their 5-year vision? Where do skill gaps persist that will prevent the company from reaching their objectives if they don't bridge the skill gaps? And then presenting a plan to their companies on how L&D can basically execute a plan that will increase probability of success of helping the company get to their 1 year, 3 year goals and reduce the risk. Like for me, if somebody from my company came to me and I'm the CEO and I presented to the company the 1 year, the 3 year plan, and they came to me and said, Ryan, like this plan is great, but we just don't have the right skills today to execute that 1 year plan. And your plan is at risk automatically. I will turn to them and say, how do we fix this? How do we solve this? That person will automatically become a trusted advisor to me. So it's kind of that concept of going out of the way, and you as the experts around learning and development, being able to make recommendations to the company, and then positioning yourself not just from a top-down strategy, top-down meaning what's the 1 year, 3 year company objectives and the vision, and how to align L&D investments around that, but also bottoms up, creating business partnerships with cross-functional leaders and having a good intake or request process so that when these business functional leaders come to you with problems, you can consult with them on and helping them to prioritize, making sure that it is a priority. It does align to the top-down objectives, not just saying yes to them, and really understanding what problem does this solve? What does success look like? Having the upfront conversation, like if we invest time and money in this program, how are we going to measure this? How are we going to measure the ROI? So coming up with that criteria all the way before you even start developing the learning during the conversational aspect. And if you have a good partnership, you can even ask, what data will you, VP of whatever business function provide to us to help us show that impact story, make sure that, we can make decisions together to continue to investing in this or not, right? And then it comes down to, again, that companies are expecting you to show ROI right now, which programs are effective, which are not, what KPIs did the learning impact, was it worth it? Should we be making additional investments? That's what they want you to answer. And so understanding the difference of measurement, ROI, and impact, and ensuring that you start the conversations with your business partners up front is how you're going to make that process easier. Because if you know what problem you're going to solve, and upfront by design, you talk to your business partners about how are we going to evaluate, what levels of evaluation do we really need for this program. So making those decisions with your business partner, understanding how you're going to measure the cost and the time of the program and what impact looks like what does success look like for that business function if we invested time and money, then you can roadmap backwards, right? So you can roadmap backwards to getting there. So lastly, with the few minutes we have, like really look at your L&D playbook, like create a playbook if you don't have one. What's the strategy? What's your mission and vision for your department, for your team as an instructional designer to align to the mission and vision of your L&D team or of your company team? Being able to have tougher skin about like, being okay to have those tougher conversations, conflict resolution. If you know the company's not prioritizing right, it's a great opportunity for you to talk about that. I know that organizations are political sometimes and might be scary, but you got to do what you think is right. And that's how you're going to drive improvements, right? And think about value add. How are you adding value to both the workforce and the business to make that strategic impact? So I'll share these slides just because we're running a bit out of time as well with everybody. And again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions about any of these concepts. But a couple other trusted resources. If you go to learningoperations.com, there's a free job board that we set up for the industry. It's a great resource. It basically crawls the entire World Wide Web and scrapes any jobs it finds for L&D. And so it's aggregating all of the jobs across the world, both remote or in person, that you can do. We also have a community. I talked to Lewis about like maybe we can partner together on learnops.com. It's a community with other L&D professionals. It's free. Again, at learnops.com/events, we have free resources. The next big event that we're doing for free outside of the workshop is our LearnOps Summit, expected to have 4,000 attendees, great speakers. So feel free to join that. And then if you want to get certified, we have the Academy coming up. There's also other resources like L&D Cares that we have a partnership with. If you're looking for mentoring, job career coaching, mentoring, you can go to L&D Cares and you can get 3 free mentoring sessions from people like Brandon Carson, myself, others in the industry that just help you think about your next steps in here. And then lastly, build peer groups so that you can stay connected with everybody and stay ahead in the industry. Again, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about our article, the research we're seeing. Feel free to stay connected. I love this industry, and we're here to support everybody in the industry. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Gosh, Ryan, thank you. This was great. I actually, it was a little unexpected to tell you the truth. This was I mean, at one of our larger events, you would have just, I know chat would have just been going crazy because we do have in the community a lot of senior folks that would love to have heard this from you. So I'm looking forward to being able to share it to everybody in our Slack group and on our YouTube channel, because I do think people will really, really appreciate it. I'm just curious myself, and I know we're at time, but Cognota, why did you start that company?
Yeah, so I fell into L&D like a lot of people about 15 years ago. I came in to build a go-to-market strategy for a company called World Trade Group, and I recognized that their competitors offered corporate learning services. They didn't, so I built a corporate learning services group for them. When they got acquired by a private equity group, I loved what I learned about L&D, so I started consulting in L&D with enterprises. And that's when I basically started seeing how, no offense, how inefficient L&D operates versus other business functional areas. It's not their fault. Like if you look at other business functions, they all have purpose-built operating systems. Sales has Salesforce. Atlassian has, or software development has Atlassian. Marketing teams have HubSpot. Finance teams have their operating systems. L&D has nothing. Like we're still using spreadsheets and whatnot. So that's when we built a thesis like, why do other functions have purpose-built operating systems and L&D doesn't? The LMS is not an operating system. It's a way to host content, deliver it to learners. So we wanted to, our goal is and our mission is to power learning operations for enterprises, not only provide software, but help to provide the ecosystem so people can learn how to do this effectively.
No, that's excellent. Is LearnOps something that you constructed, that concept? Would you say that you built that, or was that already in existence prior?
I mean, look, the concept of learning operations has always existed prior. It hasn't been talked about a lot. Analysts are starting to talk a lot about it, which is great because it's the plumbing, it's the infrastructure on how you run L&D like a business.
Right.
The word learn ops we coined with a couple of industry experts. And it was just a good way. People are familiar with RevOps and DevOps. So it was a way for them to get familiar with everything encompassing learning operations, essentially.
Right. No, I love the concept. One last thing, I'm just going to throw this out there. I think that having a seat at the table, that is such a, I mean, over the whatever 20 plus years that I've been in this space, that is like been the one thing that comes up all the time for L&D professionals to make sure that you get at that seat. If you were like to compare that to, say, like right now, this particular community, we have a huge influx of teachers that are coming in that are wanting to switch careers into instructional design. What would you say to those folks? Like just that mind shift about getting the seat at the table. Is there anything that you could think of that you could compare, like in a K through 12 sort of format? Like
not a comparison, but I think the word curiosity is like key right now. Like be curious and don't just treat your job as a job in your company. Like go out of your way and learn what's important to the company. Go and ask for the company's plan, that 1 year, 3 year plan. What's the 5 year vision? And be curious and show that you care, right? Like you want your job, your employers to care about you having your job. They want you to care about them staying in business, right? Like they are having just a hard time as employees. So it should be a partnership. It should be balanced. Like go out of your way and learn what's important to the business and what element you can play to help the company get there, right? And then be loud about it. Be loud about it so that your work is recognized, because if you're not telling your story, somebody else will. And that's scary. You don't want people to tell your story. You want to tell your story.
Yeah. No, I love it, Ryan. Are you going to be exhibiting at any events, or if people want to meet you or talk to you, anything coming up?
Yes. So we just, I spoke at ATD with Martha Soren. She was the Chief Talent Development Officer at Comcast. And then we went to TICE. We will be at DevLearn next. And there might be a couple others along the way, but if happy to meet, again, our workshops that we do for free, I'll post the link again. I co-lead these with Chief Learning Officers. So you're not just learning with me, but you're learning with other CLOs who are real operators, have been there, done it. Like, I have one coming up with the CLO from Deloitte, for example, just did one with Brandon Carson from Starbucks. So it's a great way to learn, and it's very interactive with roundtables. You meet a bunch of people in L&D who are facing the same challenges that you will. So happy to meet you there as well.
No, it's a great opportunity. I can't, stress enough how, if you need to kind of get that mindset in the right place, attending those types of things can really, really be helpful, as well as joining communities like, like Ryan's community. And of course, here in TLDC, where you can, collaborate and discuss with peers. I mean, it's just such a huge thing. All right, Ryan, thank you so much. This has been great. And hopefully we'll see you again some point.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to do this again. Such an honor to be here and spend time with everybody today. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.